Now it's time to get serious with Thrustmaster and the Ferrari racing wheel. Alright, so racing with this wheel is so weird. And the reason is simply because we have no force feedback. I'm so used to it that I can barely drive now. Like I mentioned before, this is going back to the basics. But I don't like going back to the basic with this wheel. It's very comfortable, I must say that. It's responsive, but because we don't have any force feedback, we need to figure out how responsive or how I need to steer in and how the wheel itself will react. But I can tell you, this is for me driving all over again, starting it over again, because this is so weird. But responsive it is. Very sensitive. Okay, playing Dirt 5 with this racing wheel makes no sense whatsoever. But let's see if we do have overall better results than with the previous game. Forza Horizon was so difficult to play. But somehow, this works so much better. The wheel is still that sensitive, like with the previous game. But it is a good side when it comes to dirt. I'm not using the shifter, just automatic. Just see how the experience. I must say the pedals are very responsive, particularly when it comes to the acceleration, but also the brake. A very pleasant thing. So I hated this thing, or this racing wheel for Forza. I do love it when it comes for dirt, because it's so easy to use. You can see how sensitive, but also how fast it reacts to the car itself. It's amazing. I do miss a force feedback for the airtime, but besides that, it's great. Okay, let's get into a pure arcade game. What I've noticed with some of the force feedback wheels of Thrustmaster is that some of them didn't have like the overall perfect, let's say, combination when it comes to the software force feedback, where we had like this weird like rumbling, let's say, stuttering situation with, let's say, the racing wheel and the force feedback. But because this thing doesn't have any, we don't feel it. Do you have noticed that this steering wheel with this particular game has less sensitivity? I would not be surprised that we can adjust it. We have nitro. We can use the A button if you want to. Oh, don't know what that is supposed to be. That's supposed to be the nitro, but doesn't matter. But when looking at, let's say, the way how this actually plays and how responsive it is a lot of fun. Absolutely. So it's really depending what kind of game you're going to be playing when it comes to, let's say, the racing wheel itself. If it's going to be in simulation or an arcade version. So one of the games I really needed to get used to when it comes to the force feedback with all the racing wheels I've reviewed is Formula 1. Because it had like an aggressive force feedback. But with this racing wheel, we don't have that at all. The only thing we're having is the spring in the inside, the old school way. But it's kind of enjoyable because you don't have that crazy pressure from the force feedback. Of course, you can always lower it, but when you're looking at this racing wheel, I just like this. It's very responsive, not over the top responsive. And if you don't like it, I would not be surprised you can even adjust that in the game itself. But if you just want to start off with a Formula 1 game, you just want to have a really cheap racing wheel, something that just actually responds very well, I think this Formula 1, of this Ferrari thing with Formula 1 is a very cool combination. You have some struggle with the pedals, but besides that, the point. This is absolutely a lot of fun to playing it like this. You can just see how sensitive it is. So you need to be very careful and you need to get used to the situation. But how about if you're going to be getting into the Xbox 360 games, backwards compatible? Let's go for some Hydro Thunder, one of my favorite games, so I'm not going to be needing this one. Nope. Okay, so the force feedback was kind of okay when I'm looking at auto racing wheels. So this is of course an old, very old game. So the compatibility is always going to be different, but it's always better than, let's say, the old school stuff with PC, a lot of shenanigans going on. And this just works out of the box. Okay, so let's see how it is and how does the game respond to this. There is almost no dead zone in this. I do wonder there is the first person view. Woohoo! Oh man, that's really enjoyable. So cool. So for all the games, I'm surprised how well this thing works. I have no idea how to use the nitro. I can use the metal shift at the right. But this is really enjoyable, yeah. Hey, didn't even know I could jump. That's a new one. Whee! Whee! So the Ferrari racing wheel, it really surprised me with a couple of games. I actually played all kinds of games that have nothing to do with Ferrari so far, I know. But when it comes to, let's say, the racing and the overall experience, at first I was missing the force feedback, but getting into some games like F1 or getting, let's say, the Hydro Thunder, this wheel didn't disappoint. With the session, my, let's say, pedals were starting to move around. It was kind of disappointing. But when it comes to the performance and how they work just fine when it comes to the acceleration, but also when it comes to braking and the overall functionality. The racing wheel feels kind of cheap, but it does have a very comfortable feel. And the rubber grip is quite nice. I don't know how long that will be normal, because sometimes after the years it can get sticky. Don't know if there's going to be a problem with this. So what is interesting also when it comes to the layout, I really need to get used to it, because at the first you're searching your button because the A, B, X, Y and everything, some of them are not really clear. So for example, the engine stop is just your D-pad, so that's kind of cool. So when you're looking at it, I didn't even utilize every feature on the racing wheel, but I do like the way how it looks and how it plays. Thank you all for watching, consider subscribing, hit that little bell, and it would be great to see you in the next video.